Hey y'all, welcome to the Fireside. So, today, I wanted to share with you one of my favorite stories to tell. Um, it's maybe one that most people wouldn't think is the most interactive story or a favorite story to tell, but it's the story of the Ascension. So, let me tell you a story. So, the apostles are walking out into the desert with Jesus, and Jesus is telling them all the things that they need to know when he leaves, telling them that his time is very, very close, that after today they may not see him again. And as he's walking, eventually he simply stops and he turns to them and he puts out his hands as he's just lifted into the sky and just like ah, 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 ah. Jesus is like being lifted up. You know how in musicals, whenever they like put out their arms and people will like hold them up by the arms and dance around with them. That's kind of what's happening here in my head. Is Jesus is just as he's going up into the clouds. Meanwhile, you have to assume that all of the apostles are like, guys, what's going on? Jesus, he's going up into heaven. This is crazy. What's happening? And they sit there and they watch as Jesus slowly but surely makes his way up into the clouds and beyond. And then these two men, angels disguised as men, come up to them. And I always picture it like this. They look up at the sky, they look at the apostles, look up at the sky, look at the apostles, look up at the sky, kind of wide mouth. What you looking at? And by the way, that's a direct quote from scripture. What are you looking at? I always just have this image in my head of just like this. What are we looking at? You know that then they continue and say, you know, Jesus just went to heaven, right? Like, doesn't mean the end of the world, and yeah, it was cool and all, but you got work to do. Chop chop. I believe one of the last things he told you was to go and make disciples of all nations. That's a job. So, get to it. I love this story because it's a great representation of how the Bible is funny. In the places and stories that we know best, like the Bible is funny. God is telling us a funny story about things that are happening. God has a sense of humor. Yes, God has a sense of humor. That's why He created people with weird senses of humor like me, is because I get chuckles out of things. Um, and He did create the platypus, so He obviously has a sense of humor. Um, So, like, I love this story because God's humor is thrown into this very common story in ways that we don't normally see or read. So, guys, thank you for joining me over here on this fireside for this week. I hope that you guys got a chuckle out of it. I know that I get a chuckle every time I picture it. And go ahead and throw in the description down below what you see whenever you think of this or whenever you read this passage. Is it more solemn, more reserved, or is it some kind of funny scene? Um, Neither way of seeing it is wrong. It's just all about how we read Scripture. So go ahead and leave those down in the comment section down below. And guys, thanks for joining me by the fireside. I'll see you guys next week.